Welcome back to the Annie Frey Show. I'm Ryan Recker filling in, and thank you for all of you that are watching us on the live stream right now. We do have a YouTube live chat poll, which we forgot to announce earlier, which we'll get to after our interview with NewsNation's senior congressional correspondent, Joe Khalil. Thank you so much for joining us in St. Louis here today.
Of course. Glad to be with you.
What a weekend. The news of Lindsey Graham, I think, shocked a lot of people. I remember looking at my social media feed and seeing it trending, and I thought, how? This came out of nowhere. I think there's a lot of people that are grieving, and unfortunately, in today's social media world, there's also a lot of people celebrating, which is sad to see. What do you think Lindsey Graham's going to be remembered for? Because I'm sure you're seeing a lot of different sides right now.
Yeah. Oh, boy. I mean, it's a huge question because he just leaves behind such a massive legacy. I think, what he'll be remembered for, the sort of institutional loss that this is for the Senate, I don't think we're quite processing yet. And just give people a picture, when foreign leaders, especially European leaders, needed to communicate with President Trump and they had a hard time, they would go to Senator Graham. And that would be Zelenskyy, that would be Netanyahu. That link is lost now. If Democrats or if Republicans on Capitol Hill had issues with the White House, there was no then Senator. He was a defense hawk for sure. He made a lot of political enemies. It's not necessarily the popular stance right now to be so pro-Israel as he was, to be so pro-Ukrainian in the Republican Party, but he unapologetically was still. So I think all of that goes into his legacy. I think also what you're seeing from Republicans and Democrats is on a personal level, many of them, most of them did see him as somebody they could cross the aisle and work with. And a lot of stories today from Democrats even, funny that he was a sort of a jovial guy. He liked to laugh. He liked to joke with himself. He was incredibly serious and intense when he wanted something to get done. But there was that lighter side to him. And I'll just add one more thing, I think, when we talk about legacy. I think you cannot separate his relationship with President Trump as part of his legacy. And some will love this, some will hate this. He was bitter rivals with the president. He disagreed often on policy and would say, he said really horrible things about the president and vice versa. Back in 2016, he came to learn that if he wanted to be an influence maker in Congress, in the United States, if he wanted to be a champion for, say, Ukraine, you couldn't be a political opponent of President Trump. You had to be one of his allies, and he made himself that so that he could still wield that power and have that influence. I think that is sort of also, that will be a legacy point that I think a lot of people, some might love, some might hate, but this is the complicated figure that was Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, I think when it comes to politicians who have relationships with the president, and you've seen a lot of people criticize him before he got into office, I think what they found was that if you're willing to lay out your case and meet with him, you can convince the president why you feel the way you do, and he'll get on board. And it goes to show you, too, you're right with Israel, you're right with Ukraine, that Lindsey Graham has been a huge ally for both of those causes, which now people wonder, where is that going to sit if maybe your biggest advocate in the United States is no longer serving and the president doesn't have that person advocating for them? What does that mean for these foreign entities? Are we going to start winding down with it? And, of course, you have the SAVE Act as well. So there's a lot of things that we're kind of balancing here in the Senate that Lindsey Graham seemed to not necessarily organize, but at least be an ally for some of the agenda pieces for the administration. So you're right, moving out in the future, too, a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, he was at the center of virtually every major political issue, whether it was foreign policy or whether it was domestic. President Trump right now is trying to move forward with a third sort of big budget bill. Guess who was the Senate budget chairman? That was Senator Lindsey Graham. So he used to help usher through that. Literally the last public event that Graham did was in Ukraine on Friday. And he put out this big video talking about how he has this sanctions bill on Russia. It's an aggressive sanctions bill. It's very bipartisan. Democrats were part of it, but he was the lead Republican on it. And he announced that the White House, after more than a year, has just made an agreement with him, and the president is going to sign it. The bill will move forward. So again, where does that bill go? I talked to the Democratic leads on it today. They still think it will go forward. They think even more so now. It's got momentum because that's going to be part of Graham's legacy. But you're absolutely right. Take a big issue, take a major issue that the Senate has dealt with in the last 20, 30 years, and you're going to find Lindsey Graham, if not right in the front of that issue, and certainly in the middle of it. And for those that criticize him for sort of ingratiating himself with President Trump, the question is, could he be the influential presence he was on all of these issues had he not been such a close ally of the president and been able to sway him sometimes in different directions?
Yeah, and I know we only have 30 seconds here, so very briefly, President Trump recommended that Lindsey Graham's sister Darlene step in momentarily.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea?
This is only for a couple of weeks. Senator Graham's term would have been up at the end of the year. It is more than a couple of weeks, couple months, I should say. I think even Leader John Thune has expressed some support for that idea. So that would be the short term. Long term, we'll see which Republican throws their hat in the ring to get on the ballot in November. We'll find out.
In the short term, we've seen this. It's not unprecedented. It happens quite frequently. NewsNation senior congressional correspondent Joe Khalil, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Glad to do it.